I'd like to have a 6-ounce homemade with cheese.
Mark Davidson doesn't often eat out like this anymore. It's the salt, he says. He comes here because the cooks have a light touch with the salt shaker.
I try watching my salt, and I always ask if they can make something without salt.
Barbecue sauce.
Over the last couple of years, the restaurant industry has faced more and more pressure to limit sodium, but any efforts they've made have been voluntary. So how has that worked out so far?
So this is a list of all the restaurants that you assessed.
Researchers at the University of Toronto looked at the menus of 61 Canadian restaurant chains and compared how much salt their dishes contained in 2010 and 2013. Their study, published in the CMAJ, found that sodium levels decreased in about 30% of foods, increased in about 16% of foods, and stayed the same in about 54%. In other words, their food is almost as salty as ever. On the menus, a quarter of the items contain a full day's worth of salt. But the good news, a handful of chains like Subway and Pizza Hut that formally committed to reducing sodium did just that.
So it seems as though it does work if you try.
Tried, and we just would like the rest of them to make that commitment, and we'd be much better off.
Rather than wait for that to happen, Labbé wants Ottawa to step in with legislation requiring restaurants to print nutrition information right on the menus, like laws recently introduced in Ontario and in the U.S. But it's one thing to change restaurant menus, it's quite another to change people's tastes. There's no research that conclusively shows menu labeling makes people choose foods with less sodium.
We're prepared to work with government to help consumers get the message about sodium reduction, but there has to be consumer acceptance of sodium-reduced items.
In other words, it's up to us. Kim Brunhuber, CBC News, Toronto.